everything that I thought was going to happen, it did not. Let's talk about Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber, and let's keep it spoiler free. I gotta say, this was on my TBR for a really long time, and guess what? I heard Haley Pham, one of my favorite booktubers of all time, she was ranting and raving about this book, so I was wildly curious. I had to find out what the heck she was talking about. So let's get into it, shall we? Here is a spoiler-free review for you, and if you would like to purchase yourself a copy of this book, I will drop a link below in the description to where you can purchase yourself a copy on Amazon. You deserve it. Treat yourself. If you enjoy book reviews, book summaries, overall book-related discussion, this is the channel for you. Don't forget to hit subscribe. I really appreciate your support. I love this channel, and I would be glad to have you. You may have heard about Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. This is a YA fantasy book. It follows our main character, Evangeline Fox, who is in love with a boy. His name is Luke. Luke all of a sudden decides he's in love with somebody else and he is going to be married to someone else. In an effort to stop the wedding, Evangeline seeks out a fate in order to stop the wedding. That's all you need to know before you jump into this book. Honestly, I gotta say, the description on the back of this book is perfect. It gives nothing away. You won't encounter any spoilers on the back of this book. I really appreciate that because you'd be surprised. Sometimes the description on the back just ruins way too much. Okay, look, for me, this was a 4-star book. I enjoyed it. I thought it was really fun. It's extremely fast-paced. I was interested, but it is not perfect. I didn't find myself obsessed with the storyline, with the characters. I was interested enough to keep going. I'm interested enough to continue with the series. However, I'm not interested enough to continue with this particular series because I read this out of order. I was under the impression, which this is true, you can read Once Upon a Broken Heart first. However, what I recently discovered is that you should start with the Caraval series. Yeah. I had a lot of commenters on TikTok saying, hey, you read Caraval first, right? Oops. Okay, look, it's not like this book doesn't make sense. It makes sense, but I was missing a ton of context by failing to read Caraval first. So that's what I'm going to do. Because I'm interested enough, I'm going to go back and read Caraval. I'm reading this totally out of order, but I don't think it matters. With Once Upon a Broken Heart, I was interested, but at times I was like, wait, what? It's not that I was confused. That's not the right term, but I was thinking, oh, that's interesting. I didn't expect that. Okay, let me say that Once Upon a Broken Heart, it really surprised me. With the events that were occurring, I thought, whoa, that was unexpected. Which I gotta say, that was really fun. Everything that I predicted would happen did not. I was so wildly wrong, and it was a fun journey. There were unexpected turns that were so unexpected, and I don't know if that's because I didn't go into this book really analyzing what was going on, or if it was simply because I did not start with Caraval. I don't know. Doesn't matter. Did I enjoy the story? Absolutely. I enjoyed the characters. I enjoyed the storyline. There's a lot going on. If you are interested in a summary of this book, perhaps you're on a Once Upon a Broken Heart journey and you want to revisit what happened in this first book, I have you covered. If you're looking for a full summary, I will drop that in the description box below. However, if you have yet to read Once Upon a Broken Heart and you're just simply looking for a review and trying to decide whether or not you want to read it, I think it's worth the read. If you enjoy young adult fantasy, I think this is an excellent one. Though I will say, Evangeline is not my favorite character, Jax is not my favorite character, but I'm still invested in the story. The thing is with the characters, there's nothing super special about them. Forgive me for all of you fans of this series. That's just how I feel. Evangeline, her most quirky quality, I must say, is that she's hopeful. She's a very hopeful creature who believes in true love and happy endings. I don't know how the trilogy ends, but oh my gosh, Stephanie Garber, I hope you don't hurt this girl too much. Jax is a complex creature. He's a fate. He's lived a long time. He's lived through some heartaches. Now, in this book, we kind of get clues as to what happened in Caraval, though we don't really know, to be honest. In my opinion, I think the best reading experience would be to start with Caraval and then proceed to Once Upon a Broken Heart, because I just think there's probably stuff in here. This is all speculation, by the way, because I have not read this book. But when I was reading this, I thought, what? Okay. And I know I'm not alone. I had a reading partner for this, and she was equally confused, and she was equally caught off guard. All that to say, it was a really fun journey. Do I think it's worth the read? Absolutely. I think 4 stars, considering my reading experience, is pretty fair. I was entertained. I enjoyed it. I liked the characters. It surprised me. I think that was the best, most special part about this book for me, is it surprised me the most. Everything that I thought was going to happen, it did not. For those of you who have already read Once Upon a Broken Heart, I hope you leave me a comment. Did you love it? What did you rate it? How does the rest of the series compare to the first book? Have you read Caraval? Is there a specific reading order that you would recommend? Because, whoa, I was a little bit surprised in hearing people say that you should start with Caraval. According to Google, you can start with Once Upon a Broken Heart. Yes, you can. And I can confirm that you can definitely do that, but I think that there is a lot of context that you will be missing if you don't start with the first and foremost trilogy, Caraval. I'd already decided about halfway through Once Upon a Broken Heart that I was already invested in the series. With that being said, I don't feel super inclined to read the next book in this particular series, which is the Ballad of Never After, if I'm not mistaken. But what I would really like to do is go back and read Caraval, because I don't really understand Jax as a character. I understand there's some stuff that happened before this book occurred, and I would like to know what that is. I think that would be immensely helpful. So when I resume my reading of this world, I will be resuming with Caraval. Totally out of order, but that is what I would like to do. If you've stuck with me thus far, thank you so much. I hope that you really enjoyed your reading of Caraval, Once Upon a Broken Heart. I hope you leave me a comment. Let me know what your overall thoughts were about these books. I really enjoyed Stephanie Garber's writing. I think that she did a really wonderful job. There's just something holding me back from a 5-star rating. And honestly, it's difficult for me to put my finger on it, because I just think that while the characters were nice, I don't feel particularly in love with them. Please tell me that you have encountered a book in which you feel like you know the characters. You feel like they are larger than life. You feel like they're real, that they are your friends in real life. I didn't necessarily feel that in Once Upon a Broken Heart. When I was reading Once Upon a Broken Heart, I was very aware that I was reading. You ever lose yourself in a book where you're just totally immersed with the world? You are in it with the characters. I didn't necessarily feel that way about this, and maybe part of that is the fact that it's a fantasy novel and that this does not occur in everyday life. But I find that the books that I'm really obsessed with, they have characters where you feel extremely attached to. You feel like you know them in real life. You feel like they are genuinely your friends, or just simply somebody that you know in real life. I didn't necessarily feel that in Once Upon a Broken Heart. These characters were definitely fictional, and I think that was the barrier that held me back from a 5-star read, but I very much enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the ride. I'm definitely invested in learning what happens to Evangeline next. I want to learn more about Jax, which is why I plan on reading Caraval in the near future, but I think it's well worth the read. Is it worth it? Yes. Did I enjoy my time? Yes. Is it perfect? No. In the event you are interested in reading Caraval, Once Upon a Broken Heart, I am dropping the links below in the description to where you can purchase your copies on Amazon, and you should treat yourself. You deserve it. Life is too short to not buy yourself some good books. Anyways, enough talk there. That's my review on Once Upon a Broken Heart. If you have read this book, I would love to hear your thoughts. Please leave me a comment. If I've gotten you interested in this book, please also leave me a comment. I hope that you're reading something great. I hope that I've generated some interest for you in reading some Stephanie Garber. I think she's great. Happy reading, and I will catch you on the flip side.